You're listening to The Steven Tauriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Steven Tauriello Show. And now, here's Steven.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. So BLM branch co-founder says Trump is the best candidate for president. Yep. And this is the type of honesty that we need coming out of that side of the spectrum. We need people to start being honest about what we're dealing with here when it comes to the Democrat Party. And you're starting to see this a lot more. Listen, the list for Donald Trump is growing and the list for Joe Biden is shrinking. It's as simple as that. That's why you see the poll numbers you do, where Donald Trump is just absolutely wrecking Joe Biden in key swing states, not by a little, by a lot. Donald Trump is way better off in the polls than he was in 2020, way, in every single demographic. Women, black minorities, Hispanics, all across the board. His support for the black community went from 8% to 22% in some of these states. That is insane. And it's actually freaking the Democrats out. I got some audio here from Joe and Mika on the Morning Blow show talking about how Democrats need to be paying attention because Donald Trump is gaining in the polls when it comes to the black minority community. And we all know what happens when the support for the black community goes up for Republicans. They said a 8% support from the black community, Democrats will never win an election again. Donald Trump doesn't have 8%. He's got 22%.
Martha, maybe the most startling number in our poll is this, the hypothetical matchup, a rematch of Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. Our poll with the Washington Post pegging this at 51% for Donald Trump over Joe Biden. That is a 9-point edge. Now, that's only a couple of points difference from our last poll in May, but it is significantly different than most recent polls. It is an outlier compared to other polls we've seen recently. Our partners at 538 put together an analysis for us. They find an average of recent polls having this more in the 1 or 2 point range, with Joe Biden typically having the edge. But whether you believe that or not, look, there's a good chance that there's people just trying to send a message in the polling right now, given the other frustration we've seen. We know in this poll there's some quirks, some oddities around the number of black voters and Hispanic voters, the younger voters who seem to be supporting Donald Trump. And get this, because it's pretty hard to believe, but we asked people whether Donald Trump should be constitutionally disqualified from running for office. And among people who said yes, 1 in 5, about 18%, say they'd vote for Trump anyway. So that might just be sending a message that's more anti-Biden than it is pro-Trump. But regardless, the weaknesses that we are seeing for Joe Biden and his approval rating across the board are very real. They are alarming to Democrats, even if no one thinks this is ultimately going to be a 9-point race.
So now you know why that they're so eager to get Donald Trump off the ballot. They know Donald Trump is going to win past the margin of cheating, no matter how much cheating they can do. So Mark Fisher, the co-founder of a Black Lives Matter chapter in Rhode Island, is advocating for the former President Donald Trump's return to the Oval Office in 2024 and insists he's far from being the only one in the BLM movement to feel this way. Wow. So in a recent interview with podcast Kim Iverson, Mr. Fisher was asked to defend remarks he made earlier that President Trump is the, quote, the best candidate we have because everybody else sucks. I agree, dude. So Mr. Fisher replied later, praising President Trump for his straightforward approach and contrasting it with what perceives as the Democrat Party's hypocrisy. Miss Iverson sought to clarify Mr. Fisher's response, asking if he thought President Trump was simply the best of a bad lot and, frankly, quote, not that great either. Mr. Fisher replied by highlighting his personal regard for President Trump before adding, it's hard not to appreciate what the 45th president brings to the table, given the shortcomings of the incumbent. I like Trump, he said, before adding, I think right now who we have sitting in the Oval Office is just a deep disappointment. He expressed disdain for President Joe Biden, adding that he, quote, really dislikes Vice President Kamala Harris as well. Yeah, This is something that I'm experiencing all over. This is a pattern that I'm recognizing, and we've talked about this before. I remember doing a show where I had like 15 minutes of just TikTok audio of black people talking about how they support Donald Trump and why. I mean, I'm talking every square inch of this country, in every nook and cranny of this country. You have black people praising Donald Trump. Why? Because now people have a clear contrast. Before the Trump administration, during the Obama administration, during the Trump administration, and after the Trump administration, the Biden administration. And they don't need any other evidence than that. This is why support for Donald Trump is going up. Like they got to compare and contrast the stark differences between both of the administrations. And they want Trump's administration. It's not just Donald Trump. I think people are starting to realize, like, yeah, who cares about mean tweets? Who cares if the guy's orange? Like, I think people are in such pain and misery that they just want to be able to help themselves. And they know the only time they were able to do that was during the Trump administration. You know, people in this country, America is very unique, man. You know, we are all fighters in this country. Yes, you're going to have people on welfare, but that goes across the entire board, every demographic. That's white people, black people. But for the most part, Americans want to be able to lift themselves up. They see the American dream, and they're trying to achieve that dream. And they can't when there is administrations like the Biden administration who is holding them down. Not only is the Biden administration holding them down, but they go out on stage and praise themselves as if they're lifting the black minority community up. It's a lie. And most of all, people can't stand liars. Americans can't stand it when people lie. Americans like the underdog. Americans don't like bullies. These are the attributes of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is being bullied. Donald Trump is the underdog. And now with these savages indicting Donald Trump 50 times, they can relate to that. You're talking about a justice system that has abused the black minority community for a long time. And now it's happening to Donald Trump. So go back to the article here. The tide is starting to turn. Reacting to Mr. Fisher's critical remarks about the incumbent and words of praise for the former president, Ms. Iverson suggested that her interviewee was probably a lone figure in the BLM movement who thinks this way. No, Mr. Fisher insisted. Quote, I feel like the tide is starting to turn, he said, adding that he thinks a lot of black people are starting to pivot off the Democratic plantation. For so long, we've been slaves to that, he added. The concept of the Democrat plantation was discussed deeply in a New York Times bestseller written by political activist and social media personality Candace Owens, titled Blackout, How Black America Can Make Its Second Escape from the Democrat Plantation. In her book, Ms. Owens argues that Democrat policies hurt, rather than help, the black community in America by pushing policies that perpetuate government dependency, a culture of victimhood, and miseducation. Boom. She's right. I've been saying this for years. The Democrats' policies suck, and they don't realize the complete lack of self-awareness in the Democrat Party about how their policies affect the black minority community and really everybody. It's not just the black communities that Democrat policies affect. It's everybody, and it's not in a good way. Democrats' policies almost 100% of the time hurt people. They make things worse. And this is exactly what the co-founder of BLM is trying to say, is that for the longest time, Democrats promise all these things, and the only thing that they get is really just subsidies. All they get from the Democrat Party is just welfare. And they're starting to realize they feel trapped into the system, and because it is a trap. The Democrat Party is trying to trap people with welfare. Why? Is because people are very reluctant to vote against free stuff. When you have somebody that their entire life is dependent on a check that they get from the government, and they have an option come election time, and you have Democrats, scaring them into thinking, oh, if you vote Republican, they're going to take all your stuff away. All those checks you get every month, that's going away if you vote Republican. They do this every single time. So they want to get as many people on the government dole as possible so that they get votes. Like I said, people are reluctant to vote against free stuff. People don't like voting if it means they're going to have to give up their monthly checks. And so Democrats' idea is to create this modern day plantation where you just keep all the black people on the government dole. It's like modern day slavery, but it actually hurts them in the long run. Because here in this country, you can be anything you want to be. You can pull yourself up just so long as nobody's holding you down. And the Democrat Party and the government as a whole tends to be that weight on people's feet. And here is a quote from Mr. Fisher. Quote, their policies are basically racist policies, Mr. Fisher said of the Democrat Party's policies, which he argued strike at the heart of the black family and the nuclear family in general. And I believe Donald Trump is the opposite. He's going to tell you how it is. He's going to give it to you straight. He's not going to be a hypocrite and stab you in the back like the Democrat Party loves to do, he added. Damn. Mr. Fisher resigned from his leadership position at the BLM Rhode Island and is now the founder and executive director of Maryland's BLM Inc., a pro-entrepreneurship, education, and financial empowerment nonprofit for African Americans and their communities. Good for him. This is exactly what BLM should have been. Like, I get the problem with BLM and the environment that it was created. It was a very contentious movement that started, and worst of all, it actually hurt the black community. It didn't do jack squat for black minorities. This guy seems to be starting it the right way. Entrepreneurship, helping people help themselves. And the only way people can help themselves is by getting a good education, empowering them financially, and helping out the communities, building the nuclear family. It is a proven fact that having a mother and father in the household, the child has a better chance at living a successful life. There's no other way around it. I mean, we have data on this stuff now. And the problem is the Democrat Party incentivizes women to leave the father because she gets bigger paychecks. This is the problem, and this is why the Democrat Party is such a danger to the nuclear family. Listen, people are starting to catch on that the Democrats' policies suck. This is why they have to run on emotions. They have to create the boogeyman, and that if they want protection from the boogeyman, you're going to have to vote for them. They don't really have good policy ideas. They don't have any good policy prescriptions. They don't. So in a recent interview with the Epoch Times, Mr. Fisher expressed support for people who took part in the January 6th Capitol breach and received harsh sentences while accusing U.S. legacy media of pushing narratives that sow division. Well, he's right there. He said, quote, "Their lambs led to slaughter, to be sacrificed as an example for all who might want to dissent in the future," Mr. Fisher told the Epoch Times. This is what the government does to those who express independent thought and want to stand up for what they believe. Boom. This is the biggest problem with what I see happening with the January 6th persecutions, with the DC Gulag, is what the justice system, the DOJ and the FBI are doing is trying to intimidate any would-be dissenters. So like, for instance, say this election coming up. Say the government does something that the American people don't agree with. The American people are afraid to go protest their government of being arrested and thrown in a gulag for years. This is why the founders made our First Amendment right, free speech, and the right to petition your government the most important amendment. They made it number one for a reason. And that's exactly why. Because what they did, what they're doing right now with these J6 prisoners is just scaring anybody and everybody that would try to go petition their government. It's actually quite damaging, more damaging than people realize. So in regards to the legacy media, he said that they have an agenda to, quote, "stop us from uniting." It's the same media that caused the division between all of these marginalized groups in the first place, to keep us at each other's throats, he said. Much like during his interview with Miss Iverson, he also insisted that he's not the only one in the black community to support President Trump, although he added that many are afraid of being ridiculed, so they keep their political views secret. Quote, "They won't say it in public in fear of backlash from the community because they have reputations, businesses, and relationships that they don't want to put in jeopardy," he said. But they'll speak with their vote. Mr. Fisher's latest remarks come as President Trump is widen his lead over President Biden in a new CNN poll, which pushed support for the former president at 49% compared to the incumbent's 45%. When the same poll was carried out at the end of August, President Trump led President Biden by 47% to 46%. Besides polls, there have been other signs that the former president enjoys strong support among voters despite the fact that he faces numerous legal challenges that he sees are political attacks. Not just he sees, we all see it. So Nevada real estate tycoon Robert Bigelow, the biggest donor to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign, said recently that he's now backing President Trump because he's the, quote, strongest commander. And that's what America now needs in an increasingly chaotic world. Yep. Well, I do have to say, good for this guy for coming out, having the courage to come out and stand up. I remember years ago, if you said anything negative about BLM, you'd be censored. You had politicians coming out in the halls of Congress and kneeling to the BLM. This was crazy. Like, this was a cult-like behavior we have never seen in this country. And it just infected everything. They got millions and millions of dollars. The BLM, the group did. This is why Bongino calls it buy large mansions. Because that's exactly what Patrisse Cullors did. She bought mansions with the millions of dollars. She didn't help the black community. She didn't help George Floyd. The BLM was a giant fraud portrayed onto the black minority community. That's what that was. Now, like I said, people are starting to see the contrast of Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So I got an article here from USA Today. This is back. They released this back of the 1st of November in 2020. So right before the election. And this is USA Today. So this is pretty left-leaning stuff here. So a vote for Trump is a vote for economic progress for African Americans. With just days until the election, some black voters may still be grappling with whether to cast their vote for former President Joe Biden or President Donald Trump. Biden said, quote, "If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black." Because apparently he owns the black vote. But blacks are not a monolith, and they are not indebted to Joe Biden nor the Democratic Party. If their financial decision comes down to which candidate will continue the economic progress that lifted median black household incomes to their highest levels on record and pushed black unemployment rates and poverty rates down to their lowest levels, then there is really just one choice: President Trump. A president's words are powerful, and people often view him in the light of his rhetoric. Insensitive and offensive language is off-putting. Yet, that does not diminish what he accomplishes for the people he serves. Yeah. Actions speak louder than words. We've been saying this for years. I could give a flying crap what the guy does in his personal life. I can give a flying crap what he talks about in the locker room. I don't care. I don't care what he looks like. I don't care what he says. Because the fact of the matter is, everybody's life was better under Donald Trump. So you mean to tell me that Democrats would rather vote for their own destruction and watch this country go down in flames, all because they don't like what Donald Trump says? They don't like his mean tweets? This is what people never understood from the beginning. And they thought Joe Biden was going to be a step towards normalcy. They thought Joe Biden was going to be able to take the reins of the Trump economy and just bring it back to greener pastures. But he did the complete opposite. The American people made a grave mistake voting for Joe Biden. Joe Biden, and I said this before, Joe Biden was a mistake. A vote for Joe Biden is the biggest mistake you can make, because I warned everybody from day one that the economy was going to get worse, gas prices were going to go up, you were going to have new wars, the economy was going to take a dirt nap, the division's going to get worse. Joe Biden is nothing they told you he was. Nothing. And USA Today goes on to say numbers don't lie. Consider that the man who championed the 1957 Civil Rights Act, then Senate Majority Leader Lyndon Johnson, referred to it as the N-word bill. As president, he signed into law pivotal legislation that dismantled segregation and disenfranchisement of blacks. Lyndon Johnson was a staunch racist, folks. I was actually going to talk about this one day. So as president, he signed into law pivotal legislation that dismantled the segregation and disenfranchisement of blacks. the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, yet, according to biographers and personal accounts, he still referred to blacks of every stature, from a Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall to his own chauffeur, as the N-word. So Trump's name-calling and rhetoric are indefensible, but his actions matter most. His growth policies of corporate tax cuts and deregulation merit another term because they worked. Unemployment rates for blacks hovered for months at a near historic low. Workers with less than a high school diploma and criminal records left the sidelines of the workforce. Before the coronavirus, the labor force participation rates for blacks, prime age workers 25 to 54, and women ticked up from Obama-era lows. Even years into the Obama economic recovery, these workers were still leaving the labor force. High employment under Trump led to minorities experiencing the largest income gains. Real median income grew by 7.9% for blacks in 2019. That outpaced 2018's income growth of 2.6% and 2017's income decline of negative 2.4%. Notably, black median income growth last year surpassed income growth rates under the Obama administration. There's still more work to do, though. Although black median income hit a new high, blacks earned the lowest income level of all groups, just over $45,000 a year. But it was an all-time high. That's what I'm saying. Like, during the Trump administration, the black median income was at an all-time high. Granted, it was a net low overall, but that's something that will come over time. A black median income at an all-time high is how you get there. So income gains for blacks translated into real economic mobility. Not only did the poverty rate for blacks fall to an all-time record low in 2019, but it also dipped below 20% for the first time. At the other end of the economic scale, more black households earned six-figure incomes than the year before. In addition to job creation, entrepreneurship has flourished under Trump. According to the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation's report, the average rate of new entrepreneurs under the president's first 3 years surpassed the average for the previous two presidents. Women-owned businesses also surged, adding more than 1,800 new businesses each day in 2017 and 2018, well outpacing the rate under Obama. Remarkably, firms owned by women of color grew at double the rate of women overall. Now, through this platinum plan, Trump is promising to increase access to major capital in the black community by almost $500 billion, building on opportunity zones in an effort to attract even more long-term investment to low-income communities. People don't realize this, but Donald Trump single-handedly built the New York skyline. Donald Trump would loan money to black-owned businesses. And this is something a lot of people don't know about. But I actually have some audio from Judge Joe Brown when he was doing an interview that really didn't hit the airwaves, but I found this to be very interesting. Here is Judge Joe Brown talking about how Donald Trump would loan black entrepreneurs money when they got denied by banks. Here, check this out.
Is Trump a racist?
I don't think so. I've talked to a number of black entrepreneurs who back in the late 80s and 90s, early 90s, were trying to get financing. They couldn't. Somebody told them to go check with Donald Trump. So they come back and tell me they got a loan from Donald Trump. He gave them a term loan. Show up with the interest and the principal, one check. But they had to go see him personally. They independently relate this tale that when they saw him, he said, "This is what you're supposed to pay me? This our agreement?" I said, "Yeah." And then tore the check up, shook their hands, and congratulations. Now run your business.
And this was when?
This was back in the 90s. See, most people don't even know this. He had a sister. He was, every time you saw him back in the 90s, fine paper bag, brown, beautiful black model. He likes fine women. He didn't have any problem with dating a black woman, walking her down red carpets. So, I mean, she says he's not a racist. He just doesn't like many people, black or white. And he appreciates people who do stuff within their lane. will not stay in their lane, but where they choose to be, if they do it well, he admires them. Black, white, brown, red, yellow. Most people don't know this. He was the finance man behind Jesse Jackson's 2 runs for president.
Wow.
And that's true. Jesse Jackson celebrated Donald Trump. Donald Trump was a huge part of New York City. Donald Trump was a huge part of the minority community. Huge. I mean, this guy has done so much good stuff that the media just does not want anybody to know about. This is it's so unfortunate, man, that we really truly do have a genuinely good president who is a good, solid leader. Yes, is he an asshole? Yes. Does he exaggerate some things sometimes? Yes. What politician doesn't? But when you're talking about lying about the size of your inaugural crowd versus how much taxpayer money you're sending to another country that hates us, or lying about how you fired a prosecutor that was investigating your son by leveraging $1 billion in taxpayer money as aid in the form of aid to Ukraine, that's a big deal. That's a big difference. I find it so disgraceful and just sad that the Democrat Party in the beginning of the Trump administration and during Trump's campaign had to label him as a racist, even though for years and decades before he announced he was running, the black community loved Donald Trump. Snoop Dogg, Oprah, Whoopi Goldberg, all these people loved Donald Trump. Donald Trump released a book where he's got letters from all these people on how they wanted to be like Trump. Hell, even Obama praised Donald Trump. So it's just sad how powerful the media is and how the media can sway the minds of the public by just repeating the same lies over and over and over again. And then not only do they lie to the public, but they shield the truth. And so you have the double whammy. That is exactly how we're here. This is why people were calling Donald Trump a racist. They still do to this day. Even though you have Joe Biden that says some of the most racist stuff and is actually a real racist, where he teamed up with the segregationists during his Senate terms, during the beginning years of his Senate. Like, it is truly incredible how the media was able to flip the script and make Donald Trump out to be the racist while making Joe Biden look like this, good old lunch bucket Joe that is just a grandfather-like figure to the black community. Like, it's incredibly disturbing and shocking how powerful the media is. But there you go. Donald Trump used to loan money to black entrepreneurs in New York City because they were being denied by the banks. Like I said, and it's just so sad that we have the Democrats and a weaponized justice system in New York that is trying to liquidate Donald Trump's businesses in New York City. Like, do they realize how much damage that's going to do? How many thousands of employees that work for Trump in some way, shape, or form? Donald Trump has single-handedly built the skyline of New York in the last 3 decades. What are these people doing? Their obsession to getting Donald Trump is actually causing real harm to people, to everyday people's lives. People don't care about Letitia James's obsession with Donald Trump. These people are trying to liquefy, they're trying to liquidate Donald Trump's empire that him and his father built over the years. And now it's going to be passed on to his kids. But they got him, they drag his ass in court in some type of civil case where there's no victim, there's no fraud. It's just a judge and attorney general coordinating with the Department of Justice, trying to kneecap Donald Trump and interfere in his campaign and interfere in our elections. This is the type of country Democrats want for you. Welcome to the third world, folks. This is the country Democrats have created for you. And it's going to get worse. If Democrats continue to hold on to power, they are going to turn this entire country into California. When you have people fleeing California at record rates, now you're going to have people fleeing New York. Businesses are going to flee New York because of what these people are doing, because they're bloodthirst to getting Donald Trump. And in all reality, Donald Trump has done more for the black community than any of these people combined. in just 3.5, 4 years. It's truly incredible. So not only was the unemployment rate and the economy booming for Black America, but you also have the First Step Act. Donald Trump was making real, tangible changes in the justice system, in when it comes to justice reform. Like, it's just truly incredible how this guy who gave this country the best years we've seen in decades, and the media and the Department of Justice and the Washington establishment swamp is trying to keep that from the American people. You know, this whole notion that the goal is to defeat Trump. What does that even mean? Defeating Donald Trump is a defeat for American prosperity. They're not just defeating Donald Trump. They're defeating low unemployment rates, peace and prosperity around the world. That's what they're defeating. They're not just defeating Donald Trump. They're defeating Americans. This is why you see support for Donald Trump going up in the polls. It's like, wait a minute, dude. We got a guy that's going to give us cheap gas, peace and prosperity, and real tangible change and justice reform in the Black communities, and you want to defeat him? Why? So you can give us the crap you've been giving us for the last 4 years? I don't think so. If this is any indication of what Democrats want for this country, people shouldn't walk away from the Democrat Party. They should be running away from the Democrat Party. Because these people are nuts. They have complete bloodlust for Donald Trump right now. And they don't care what they have to destroy to get him. Because Donald Trump is not a threat to the people. He's not a threat to me or you. He is a threat to the establishment. There's no other reason why you would completely destroy every nook and cranny of our country and our institutions, our Department of Justice, our rule of law, our intel agencies, our economy. There's no reason why you would want to destroy all of that just to get one man. Unless you thought that one man was going to destroy this little elite, corrupt club that you've created for yourself. Donald Trump is not a threat to the people. We already know that. He was president for 4 years and gave this country the best years it's seen in decades. Donald Trump is a threat to them. He is a threat to the establishment. You know, the same establishment that has given you the record high unemployment rates, record high inflation, record high poverty, new wars all over the world. These people have destroyed this country in record time, and they want to sit there and tell you you should want to vote to continue it? They think the American people are actually going to vote for a continuation of this? But you actually think the Black community is going to continue this chaos? People aren't sinking out there. They are drowning. We are at a tipping point in this country. We are at the event horizon. We are going into places that this country has never been. And Democrats are obsessed with getting Donald Trump. They want to destroy the one man that can fix it. Yes, that's right, the one man that could fix it. How do we know that? Because he's done it before. So not only are they trying to defeat Donald Trump, but a defeat of Donald Trump means a defeat of you and your prosperity and your well-being and your quality of life. So it's just nonsense that the Democrats' goal is defeating Donald Trump. It's not Democrats. It's the media's goal. It's the establishment's goal. It's the swamp's goal. Because I'm telling you right now, the Democrats I talk to, they're suffering just like anybody else. And so, you know, some of them may not admit they're voting for Donald Trump. But I'm telling you right now, things are so bad in their lives that they may just go to the polling station, hold their nose, and pull that lever for Donald Trump. Because it is bad. We are very bad. We're not just bad, it is very bad. Like nation-changing bad. And so, like I said, not only was Donald Trump giving these people a good economy, but he was making real change in the justice system. You know, something that BLM and the Black community has been harping for years. And Democrats have been promising this for decades. Oh, we're going to do justice reform. We're going to do this. It's just crazy how one guy, a billionaire real estate mogul from New York that's never been in politics, the first time we've had a true outsider since George Washington, comes in and actually makes real justice reform with the First Step Act. So I got an article here from another left-wing media outlet because I want to give articles for anybody that may be thinking I'm reading from right-wing, propaganda outlets. This is NBC News. This is an article from 2019. The First Step Act promised widespread reform. The law's effects are real almost a year later, experts say. So 2 decades earlier, the country had responded to the crack cocaine epidemic with laws that hoped to stem both violence and social decay caused by low-cost crack cocaine. Over time, the 1986 law mandating a 100-to-1 crack versus powder cocaine sentencing ratio marooned millions of Americans, mostly black men, in America's prison system. So nearly a year after the First Step Act's passage, NBC News spoke to over a dozen people, including former and current elected officials, liberal and conservative advocates, and formerly incarcerated individuals, among others, who championed the reforms. They all agreed that the law's effects are tangible, and many believe the bipartisan coalition that produced it appears durable. I think the biggest win is that this is now a safe issue after years and years and years of the two parties trying to use criminal justice as a way to tear each other down, said Jessica Jackson, co-founder of #Cut50, a bipartisan criminal justice reform nonprofit. So there you go. After years and years of the Washington establishment promising real justice reform, it took the one guy from New York City that's never been in politics, comes in and gets it done in 3 years. This is what people are starting to notice. This is why people are starting to realize, hey, maybe Donald Trump is not part of that system. How do we know? Because the system is targeting him. Both parties, Republicans and Democrats. And like I always say, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If both of these parties hate Donald Trump, that makes people want him more. And it's not just what people think. People have memories of a 4-year period where things were actually getting better. People were actually seeing real tangible change, and not just in the economy, which is, the number one thing for people. You guys know the saying, it's the economy, stupid. But change in justice reform, a very popular thing in the minority community. Why? Because the minorities were targeted by crime bills like the 1994 crime bill that was written and sponsored by Joe Biden. Is that not incredible? So Biden wrote and sponsored the 1994 crime bill that systematically incarcerated black minorities for crack cocaine. And none of these Democrats thinks it's a little hypocritical that Joe Biden's son was a crackhead, got caught lying on a gun form for smoking crack when purchasing a firearm, and then leaves the firearm in a trash can and gets no time whatsoever. No time. And let's not even mention the cocaine in the White House that the American people were lied to. Lied to. Cocaine in our White House, and nobody's allowed to know who it is. They can't figure it out. Of course they could figure it out. It is the most surveilled building in this country. And they won't tell us who it is. You want to know why? It's because everybody knows whose it is. It's probably the guy who's addicted to cocaine. Just going to throw that out there. So the moral of this episode is the black community is starting to see the differences between a Biden administration and a Trump administration. And the differences are stark. They cannot be any clearer. This is why you see support for Donald Trump going up from 8% back in 2020 to 22%. The Hispanic vote, the Hispanic support for Trump is skyrocketing. His support is going up all across the board. And nothing assures me more than Joe and Mika on the Morning Blow show having a panic attack when looking at these polls. Here, check this out.
Shouldn't dismiss these polls, and should the president press forward, I think that they need to really kick this another notch up and turn this into a comparative campaign.
Like the Biden White House is actually debating whether Joe Biden should attack Donald Trump or not. This reminds me of 1988. And Michael Dukakis saying, I'm not going to answer those Bush attacks, saying I'm unpatriotic, while he's going to flag factories all over the country. And Dukakis he kept mowing his lawn with his push mower going, I'm not going to answer those attacks. You got to answer those attacks. And like whoever inside the White House is telling Joe Biden not to attack Donald Trump, stop it. Seriously, stop it. All right. And maybe start a lawn service with push lawnmowers, because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're talking about, and you're costing the president. You really are. You're costing points. This is a political battle to the end. Donald Trump is trying to destroy Joe Biden. I'm not exactly sure, Willie, who inside the White House is saying, hey, when you go up against the champ, Mike Tyson in 91, Muhammad Ali in like 73, you should fight by Marcus of Queensberry rules. No, you got to go after them. No holds barred. And yet, Willie, they're still trying to debate. Do we play nice in this campaign, or do we actually take it to a guy that stole nuclear secrets, has been accused of being a rapist by a New York judge, and has 91 felony counts against him charged? It's not hard. I don't think this is hard, and I'm not sure who inside the White House is making this hard.
What is Joe Biden going to go after Trump on? The problem is the only thing they have against Donald Trump is all their lies, is their weaponization of the government, and people can already see through that. Like, if you're going to sit there and you're going to use this weaponization of the justice system, these 91 indictments and these 6,000 charges facing 700 years, if you're going to use that as a bludgeon against Donald Trump, it's not going to work, because people already know it's all bullshit. So what are you going to attack Donald Trump on? What, how good his economy was? On how better everybody's lives were during the Trump administration? How better off the minority communities were under a Trump administration? What are you going to go after Donald Trump on? What is it? Because all you have is the lies that you created, are the court cases that the Democrats created, that the Washington establishment created. And people can already see right through it. So what is the Biden administration going to go after Donald Trump on? They have nothing. The Biden administration is a sinking ship. And the Biden administration ship is going to be sinking faster than the brass on the Titanic. The whole thing is going down. The reason why the Biden administration's not targeting Donald Trump or going after him is because they have nothing to go after him on, other than the weaponization that your party is creating. You're talking about, go after him. This is the fight for democracy. People are starting to see that it's the Democrats that are actively destroying democracy. You can't sit there and say, this is an election about democracy. Nothing screams democracy more than influencing an election by using a weaponized justice system against your political opponents. I'm sorry. So I can't stand these people. The biggest problem I have with Joe and Mika is that these people are telling Americans, no, you shouldn't want to vote for Trump. You shouldn't want to vote for Trump. Trump is bad. Biden is better. These people are multimillionaires over and over again that live in a skyrise condo in Boca Raton here in Florida. How the hell would they know what people should want? These people are so detached from regular America, they have no clue. They're sitting here telling people to vote against their own best interests. We think you should want to vote for Joe Biden to continue the slaughter of America's economy. Yes, that's what we think. These people are awful. People like Joe and Mika hate you. They hate this country. And it's not just Joe and Mika, it's the entire left-wing media. So I just wanted to get on here because, I by looking at the polls, I found it pretty shocking how this BLM co-founder has come out and has actually had the courage to come out and say that he supports Donald Trump. And again, Donald Trump's numbers with the black minority community is skyrocketing. How about all these other candidates? How are their numbers with the black community? This is why I think it's ridiculous we're even having debates. Every single one of these candidates needs to drop out and get behind Donald Trump, and let's win this damn election. But no, They're flying around like vultures, waiting for this weaponized justice system to take them out. As if this weaponized justice system is not just going to do the same thing to them. Well, maybe it won't because they're part of the system. I guarantee you, if Donald Trump never ran for president, the Democrats would be using these same tactics against any other Republican candidate. Whether it was Ron DeSantis, Chris Christie, Nikki Haley, they wouldn't have the support from the American people because the media has brainwashed mass portions of this population into hating Donald Trump on a molecular level. People don't hate these other candidates as much as they hate Trump. And this is why some people are claiming that that's why Donald Trump can't win. I so disagree. Completely disagree. No other candidate is going to get 22% support from the minority communities. None. Not even Vivek Ramaswamy, even after that savage debate he did last night. Reading this story just kind of confirms what I've been seeing for the last 6 months, is the support from minorities for Donald Trump is going up. And when you have a former co-founder of BLM coming out and getting behind Donald Trump, that's a big deal. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for tuning in. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.